I'm so sorry, y'all. When I was reading, a pop-up ad came in the middle of me finishing that part of article. So if y'all are not familiar of like, I don't know if it's the same like Anchor or certain other recording podcast services, recorders, but if you're recording and say a video or musical file, just media file is playing in the background, it not only it interrupts, it doesn't pause or anything, it ends the live podcast automatically. Now, the part of me I thought about, I'm going to have to redo it over again, and that means I got to split a podcast in two instead of one. I'm just going to say part two and take it from there. That's 11 minutes in. I don't feel like going ahead and redoing it again. You're going to get the rest of this article, and I think that's going to be it. That's my sign right there. So I was talking about Nanya Yaya when she checked the heck out of the men, talking about, we will fight the white man till the last of us fall on the battlefields, because they're like, okay, you going to let these white men check you and stuff like that? So the Shantays led by Nanya Yaya, Ashante fought very bravely. And that's what I'm saying. I talked about her before as far as being one of the powerful African queens. But, so I don't know if I might do it for her, of course I already did that. Okay, King Ramses II, also referred to as Ramses the Great, was the third pharaoh, Egyptian pharaoh of the 19th dynasty. He reigned from 1279 BC to 1213 BC. He is often regarded as the greatest, most celebrated, and the most powerful pharaoh of the Egyptian empire. His successors and later Egyptians called him the Great Ancestor. Ramesses II led several military expeditions to the Levant, reasserting Egyptian control over the Caribbean. He also led expeditions south into Europe and commemorated in the inscriptions at the temples of the Bernard Wally and Garth Henderson. I know I chopped those names up. Okay. At age 14, Ramses was appointed prince regent by his father, Seti. He is believed to have taken the throne in his late teens, and is known to have ruled Egypt for 66 years and 2 months. Okay, that's phenomenal. According to Egyptians, commentary story records, one account report he lived to be 99 years old. Queen Nefertiti was the Nubian queen from. Oh, okay, they've got this all together. Okay, from 1992 to it's Nefertiti. Okay, it's not Fertiti because their names is almost close. To 1225 BC, one of the great Mannite queens, Nefertari, was hailed as the queen who wed for peace. Her marriage to Ramses II began strictly a political move and sharing power between the two leaders. Not only did it grow into one of the greatest royal affairs in history, it brought a 100-year war between the Nubian and Egypt to an end. Their union led to an armistice that lasted over 100 years. Even today, modern stands as Nefertari's father, not Nefertiti, but Nefertari's honor. In fact, the temple of which Ramses built for her at Arbrisum is one of the largest, most beautiful sculptures to build in order for her wife. Yeah, I heard about it recently. That is Nefertiti and Nefertari, which are two different queens. I don't know if they were related or not, but I could probably look her up as well. Oh Lord, nope. Mm-mm. Okay, thank you, Jesus. Okay, the ass was about to come on. What the world? Well, that's the end of that. I'm up here trying to look y'all for the next darn slide, and they acted like that was it. I know that's not what I added. It was supposed to be next page. I thought it was supposed to be 10 kings and queens. You know what? Okay, that's a sign for me to get off this page and go to the next thing, because that was not what I thought it was supposed to be. That was not counting up to 10 kings and queens. That was too. Okay, sorry y'all, I'm going on another tangent, but that didn't make no sense. I might as well go to study.com since it's right next to it and read about it. Ancient African kingdoms, such as Egypt and Ethiopia, produced powerful legendary rulers, both male and female, including Nefertiti and her husband Anarkin and Akhretin and Makeda, the Queen of Sheba, and her son Menelik II. Read this lesson, learn about ancient African rulers. Legendary rulers. The continent of Africa is home to some of the oldest civilizations on Earth, including the famous kingdom of Egypt, as well as the kingdom of Ethiopia, which was supposedly ruled by the same family of for nearly 3,000 years. However, many of these civilizations were so old and written records are so hard to come by that it is hard to distinguish fact from legend. A legend is a story that has been passed down, often orally, about a civilization histories, battles, and heroes, which often mixes actual history, which embellished or entirely fictional stories. But legends still tell us a lot about a culture, so they are worth studying even if we cannot entirely verify the truth. Two pairs of African kings and queens that illustrate this mixture of fact and legend are Nefertiti and her husband Akhenaten, legend rulers of Egypt, and Makita, the queen of Sheba, and her son Menelik I, who supposedly founded the Sumite dynasty that ruled Ethiopia for 3,000 years. Aten is an Egyptian pharaoh, or divinely appointed ruler, who ruled during the 14th century. His reign is notable for his attempt to reform Egyptian religion, moving away from worship many gods known as polytheism, and totally short to worship a single deity Aten, who was elevated to a status above the other gods. Scholars have pointed out that this, in some ways, is the only version of monotheism, meaning the worship of one God, which was later practiced by Jews, Christians, and Muslims. And just to say this too, y'all, which I had did like some research on, I have two crosses, including one cross on my back, which is the Ankh cross. I did research that as well, and actually the Ankh was also a cross used in early forms of Christianity. Just to let y'all know that. Okay, let me continue. After the death of Akhenaten, however, the regular religious practice was restored, and he was discredited by later rulers for hundreds of years. And like I said, I talked about this before when I was in the anthropology class, that was the reason we actually had watched a whole video in the class I took. It was an anthropology class based on, and it was called Math, religions, magic and religions and myths or something like that. But it was a class that talked about, different cultures more so and religions. Okay. Akhenaten's glamorous wife Nefertiti is best remembered now for a famous bust of her head that was discovered in the early 20th century. Though there's little known about her, capturing images of the bust and other artworks had led to the circulation of many legends, including the idea that she ruled briefly on her own after Akhenaten's death, though there was little evidence to support that. Another legendary African queen, which we know little for sure, is Makita, otherwise known as the Queen of Sheba. Ethiopian legend says that Makita lived around 1000 BCE and became queen of the Ethiopian city of Arbor after defeating a monstrous serpent. Ethiopian tradition also holds that the Makita is the queen known as the Queen of Sheba in the Bible. In the biblical book of the Kings, the story is told of King Solomon, ruler of Hebrew tribes of Judea in the modern Middle East, being visited by a masculine-looking African queen. The queen learns from the wise King Solomon and becomes his lover. Okay, becomes his lover. Then she soon returns to the kingdom over the transition credits, and I actually have looked at this before. Now I see. In order to see the rest of it, I had to unlock a lesson. I must be student.com. Like, okay, you know what? This is the second incompleted article that I have seen. Okay, all right here. This is interesting, but we will continue. Move on. Now I just had it because. Okay, here we go. Here. Now we're going to National African American History. This will be my last one because of her story. Activist and suffragist. I know I'm saying that name. Mary Church Terrell. Mary Isa Church Terrell was a renowned educator and speaker who campaigned fiercely for women's suffrage and the social equality of African Americans. Born in Memphis, Tennessee in 1863, the year Emancipation Proclamation, Mary Eliza Church was part of a changing America. She was the daughter of fluent African-American parents, both who were previously enslaved. Her mother, Louisa Alex Church, owned a hair salon. Her father, Robert Reed Church, was a successful businessman who would later become one of the South's first African-American millionaires. Terrell's parents sent her to Ohio to attend a preparatory school in Altus and later Auburn College. There she earned a bachelor's and master's degree. At a time when women were not essentially to achieve academically, Terrell excelled and committed herself to passing what she had learned. After teaching for 2 years at Wilber's College, she moved to Washington, D.C. to teach high school, where she met lawyer and future judge Robert Terrell. They married in 1891. Although Mary Church Terrell's life focused on education and progress, tried to spur her in activism. In 1892, her childhood friend Thomas Morse was lynched in Memphis. Moss, the owner of People's Groceries, a successful wholesale grocer outside the city, He, like Terrell, represented progress, which many whites at that time felt a direct threat to their own garments and livelihood. The gunshot-riddled bodies of Mars and two of his employees were left on a railroad track just north of Memphis. Terrell, along with the journalist Ida B. Wells, organized anti-lynching campaigns to mobilize academics and generate awareness. Later, she would protest President Theodore Roosevelt's 1906 discharge of 167 African-American soldiers for unfounded conspiracy claims in Barnesville, Texas. She wrote columns and essays espousing the importance of dignity and respect for soldiers and the men of the fair child. Her efforts were not available at the time, although an Army investigation in 1972 led to the honorable discharge of all the soldiers, who only 2 of them were still alive. Ain't that about a bit? Okay, let me continue. Terrell held firm to the ideal of racial uplift, the belief that blacks would help end racial discrimination by advancing themselves through education, work, and activism. Her words, "lifting as we climb," became the motto of the National Association of Colored Women, NAACW, the group she co-founded in 1896. She also would go on to serve as one of the charter members of the NAACP, founded in 1909. The understanding intersectionality of race and gender discrimination. She lectured, penned essays, and spoke out on behalf of the women's suffrage movement, even picking the Woodrow Wilson White House with members of Howard University Delta Sigma sorority. Terrell was an active member of the National Association of Women's Suffrage Act, NAWSA, where she worked alongside the organization founder Susan B. Anthony. Terrell was invited to deliver 2 speeches on the challenges faced by women, and particularly women of color in America, at the International Congress of Women in Berlin in 1904. She was the only woman of African descent invited to speak at the conference. She delivered her speeches in German, French, and English, receiving standing ovations from the audience. Terrell's belief that education and activism would provide both a path to equality was demonstrated by devotion to both pursuits. A self-described dignified agitator, Terrell would fight, protest, and work on behalf of social progress for women of color for more than half a century. While in her 80s, Mary Church Terrell joined efforts to end segregation in restaurants in Washington, D.C., which laid the groundwork for the 1953 court ruling that segregation in D.C. restaurants was unconstitutional. In 1954, 2 months after the landmark of Brown versus Board of Education ruling, she passed away at her home in Highland Beach, Maryland, Cheap Bay Resort community for affluent African Americans, founded by one of Frederick Douglass's sons. Through her tireless efforts to pass the 19th Amendment 100 years ago, after serving the first black woman on the Washington, D.C. Board of Education, Terrell's work continued to echo throughout the work today. Her commitment to change opened countless doors of opportunity of those who came after her. Her legacy endures the hearts and minds of those continuing to fight for a world with more educated and empowered black women. From the civil rights leaders and feminists of the 1960s to contemporary actors and trailblazers, many have and will continue to invoke Terrell's fighting and dignified spirit. And that is it for that article, y'all. And I'm finally done, which would have been originally the first podcast I did, so this is going to be split in 2 parts. It's still our Kings and Queens, and should be volume 62, so hugs and loves, God bless, stay safe, stay positive, Father stations, we will get through this, y'all, and take care, and I will see y'all in the next one. Hopefully it'll be all one podcast together and not have to be split in two due to technical difficulties. But hey, okay, take care, y'all.